warm welcome to all my students. Today I will start a new chapter, Indian Foreign Policy. In this chapter, you will learn nature of Indian foreign policy, Pancasila Principle, non-aligned movement, anti-imperialism, anti-apartheid policy, and the last one, disarmament. So these are the topics which you are going to learn. Foreign policy. What is foreign policy? A policy adopted by a nation to deal with other nation is called foreign policy. A policy adopted by a nation to deal with another nation is called foreign policy. Every sovereign country will have their own foreign policy. A sovereign country means an independent country which is not under the control of any other country internally and external issues. That means it is an independent country. A sovereign country means an independent country. India is one of the major countries with its huge population, natural resources, military issues, and intellectual and industrial capabilities. Once again I'll repeat. First one, huge population, natural resources, military, intellectual and industrial capabilities. These are the reason why India is one of the major country in the world. Huge population, natural resources, military, intellectual and industrial capabilities. Now after this, we will learn about the aims of Indian foreign policy. There are 5 aims of Indian foreign policy. First one, national security. Second one, enriching Indian economy. Third one, trying to spread our culture to different countries. That is, enriching our culture by spreading to different countries. And the next one is where we try to increase a friendly relation and check the power of enemy country. And the last one is regarding achieving world peace and cooperation. Is that clear, children? Totally 5 aims of Indian foreign policy. First one, security. Second one, Indian economy. Third one, trying to enrich our culture through spreading to other countries. And the next one is where we are trying to develop more friendly relation with other country so that we can check our enemies. And the last one is trying to maintain international peace and cooperation among the countries. So these are the aims of Indian foreign policy. The next one is here, foreign policy is Indian foreign policy is also called as foreign policy of Nehru. Is that clear, children? Foreign policy of Nehru. The next you can see that Nehru foreign policy. You can call it as foreign policy of Nehru or call it as Nehru's foreign policy. Why it is called as foreign policy of Nehru? The first one is Nehru had outlined the foreign policy. Of India for the first time to the general public through radio speech on September 7, 1946. So first time Nehru had outlined the foreign policy of India through radio to the general public. That was done on September 7th, 1946. Is that clear, children? Now second point, Nehru in a speech clearly mentioned the relation between India and other countries like America, Russia and China. He clearly said in a speech the relation between India with America, Russia and China. And moreover, the third point is he was the first Prime Minister of India. With that, he was also the External Affairs Minister who's dealing with the foreign policy. So that is the reason why you call this foreign policy as Nehru foreign policy. Is that clear, children? So they will ask you, this question is very common. So they have asked many times in essay too. So remember, they can ask you a question, why it is hailed? Hailed means called. Why it is hailed as Nehru foreign policy? The first you have to say about the radio speech which was given on September 7, 1946 by Jawaharlal Nehru, in where he outlined the foreign policy to the general public. And the next one is where he will mention the relation between India and America, Russia and China. With that, the last one is, he is not only the first Prime Minister, he was also the External Affairs Minister who was dealing with the foreign policy. So these are the 3 points you have to write when you mention about why it is called as foreign policy of Nehru. Is that clear, children? The next one is the factor which has influenced the foreign policy. The factor which has influenced the foreign policies are, the first one is geographical aspect, national interest, political situation, economic system, public opinion and international situations. With that, we have many other reasons why we have the factors, why these factors have influenced our foreign policies. Once again, I list out national interest, geographical aspect, political situation, economic system, military issues and public opinion and international issues. With that, many other factors are responsible for shaping our Indian foreign policies. Is that clear, children? So remember, first one is national interest, geographical aspect, political situations, economic system, military issues, public opinion, international situation and many other issues which has led to shape our foreign policy. Is that clear, children? Next, we will learn about the basic aspect of India's foreign policies. First one, Pancasila Principle. Second one, Non-Aligned Movement. Third one, Anti-Imperialism. And next one is Anti-Apartheid Policy. And the last one is Disarmament. The basic aspect of Indian foreign policies are, first one, Pancasila Principle. Second one, Non-Aligned Movement. Third one, Anti-Imperialism. Fourth one, Anti-Apartheid Policy. And last one is Disarmament. Is that clear, children? These are the 5 basic aspects of Indian foreign policy. From now, I will start explaining each one. Pancasila Principle. You can see here Nehru and Zhou Enlai, the Premier of China, and the 5 principles of Pancasila Principle. Now I will explain detailedly about Pancasila Principle. In the year 1954, Pancasila Principle was signed between India and China for developing international relations. It was signed between India and China. The Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Zhou Enlai, the Premier of China. He is the head of the administrator, that is, superior head of administration. Is that clear, children? Premier of China. Zhou Enlai is the Premier of China. He accepted the Pancasila Principle. In this Pancasila Principle, we have 5 principles. The first principle is respecting each other's sovereignty and regional interest. Is that clear? First one is respecting each other's sovereignty and regional interest. Next one is non-invasion of each other. And next one is non-interference in each other's internal issues. After that, the fourth one is mutual cooperation and respect. Last one is peaceful coexistence. So first one is where we are trying to respect each other's sovereignty and regional interest. Next one is we are non-invasion of each other. That means we will not attack each other. That is called non-invasion of each other. Next one, non-interference in each other internal issue. Whatever may be the situation in India between the state, China will not interfere. That is the third point. Fourth one, where we are going to try to maintain a cooperation and respect each other. Last one, trying to have a peaceful coexistence. Is that clear, children? Totally 5 principles of Pancasila. So remember, Pancasila Principle was signed in the year 1954 between Nehru and Chow En Lai, who accepted Pancasila Principle, and later in this Pancasila Principle we have 5 principles. So remember those 5 principles. Is that clear? Next we will learn about non-aligned movement. The next one is regarding non-aligned movement. This is the second basic aspect of Indian foreign policy. After the Second World War, the world was divided into 2 blocks. One USA, the other one is USSR. USA was supporting democratic countries. USSR was supporting communist country. This took place after the Second World War. Remember, after the Second World War, the world was divided into 2 blocks, USA and USSR. USA supported democratic countries, USSR supported communist country. India, known for a peace-loving country. India is known for peace-loving country. So it decided not to join with these countries and adopted its own foreign policy, and that was non-aligned movement. India decided to adopt its own policy, and that was non-aligned movement. Though India adopted its policy, still USA and USSR was maintaining a friendly relation with India. USA supported us financially and USSR supported us military aid. Exactly, Arjun. Though India adopted its own policy, still USSR came forward and helped us. USA supported us financially, and if you see, USSR supported us military aid. So this shows that still, after having our own foreign policy, they tried to maintain a friendly relation with India. After Nehru, these foreign policy was followed by Lal Bahadur Shastri, Indira Gandhi. In the year 1965 and 1965 and 1971, we had a war with Pakistan under the guidelines of non-aligned movement. The guidelines were followed according to the non-aligned movement. But later, we had a very good relation with Pakistan during the time of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So remember, after Nehru, we followed non-aligned movement during the time of Lal Bahadur Shastri and Indira Gandhi. But during time in 1965 and 1971, we had a war with Pakistan. Later, we had a very good relation with Pakistan during the time of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So, understood about non-alignment? Remember, non-alignment was followed after the Second World War, when the world was divided into 2 blocks, USA and USSR. USA, democratic country. USSR, communist country. India decided not to adopt these policies, and we had our own policy, that was non-aligned policy. And in that, we had a very good relation with USA and USSR. Is that clear, children? The next we will learn about anti-imperialism. Anti-imperialism. First we will learn what is imperialism. Imperialism, an attempt by a sovereign country to take over another country with the intention of ruling it for personal gain. Is that clear? An independent country ruling over other country mainly for its personal gain. That is called imperialism, as India was ruled by British. This is example for imperialism. So India decided that no corner of the world shall follow this system. So it decided to implement anti-imperialism in its foreign policy. For that, it had conducted a conference in Asia, that is in New Delhi and Bandar, which is located in Indonesia. Is that clear, children? So India was against imperialism, so it adopted anti-imperialism policy, and it was trying to see that not even one country has to follow imperialism. So it had held many conferences in Asia, and two places, important place, New Delhi and Bandar. Bandar is located in Indonesia. Is that clear about anti-imperialism? Next we will learn about anti-apartheid policy, where we differentiate people on the basis of their color. Okay, that is skin color, where we differentiate people on the basis of their skin color. That is differentiating between the black and white. That we call it as apartheid. So India decided to fight against this apartheid policy. So here India made it very clear that no country of the world shall practice this. No country of the world shall practice this. That was the main policy of India. So India decided that it will adopt anti-apartheid policy. And you can see that mainly this apartheid was followed in South Africa. The minorities were white and the majorities were black. But if you see, the minority was dominating over the majority. That is, white people were dominating over the black people. So India supported South Africa by supporting their leader Nelson Mandela, who is a party member of African National Congress. So this is how India tried to put an end to apartheid policy and adopted anti-apartheid policy. Is that clear, children? This is about apartheid policy. Disarmament. Process of elimination of specific arms step by step is called disarmament. A process of elimination of specific arms step by step is called disarmament, where you are putting an end to arms race. That is called disarmament. Is that clear, children? Now, after the Second World War, every country in the world started concentrating on weapons. They did not bother about any development activities. They were only concentrating on the arms. So there was an increase in production, sales and collectivity of arms. That is, increase in production of arms and sales of arms and collectivity of arms. That means stockpiling. So these were the three activities which was concentrated after the Second World War by all the country. So there was a fear that every country had a fear. This can lead to the Third World War. So remember here, every country had a fear this can lead to the Third World War. the presence of nuclear weapons also led to more complication because we had different types of nuclear weapons during that period. So there was a fear that this can lead to a deadly war. So that was a fear in the minds of people. At that time, India supported disarmament. India made it very clear that it is going to support disarmament. As you know that India is known for its peace-loving country. India is a peace-loving country. It supported disarmament quantitatively and qualitatively. Here India made it very clear total disarmament is very difficult because every country has to protect itself. So they can't have total disarmament, but to an extent we can control qualitatively and quantitatively. So this is what you call it, disarmament. So India is a peace-loving country advocated regarding disarmament. Is that clear, children? Constitution of India, Article 51, advocates for a foreign policy, aims at international peace and cooperation. Is that clear, children? Remember Article 51. The next one is India tries to maintain a strong friendly relation with the countries, with almost all the country through SAARC, Commonwealth of Nations, and also it is one of the major powerful country in UNO. So through these organizations, India tries to maintain a friendly relation with other country. Now let me summarize from the beginning. First we learned what is foreign policy. A policy adopted by a nation to deal with other nation is foreign policy. Next I taught you about sovereign country. Independent country is called a sovereign country. After that I told you regarding the major world powerful countries and all I mentioned, and in that India is also one of the major country. I told you what are the reasons for the major country it is. It has a huge population, natural resources, military, intellectual and industrial capabilities. And next I told you about Nehru foreign policy. Remember those 3 points. Nehru gave a speech in the radio. You have to remember. Next one, relation with other country. And the last one, he was the Prime Minister of India as well as External Affairs Minister. So that's the reason why we call foreign policy as Nehru foreign policy. The next we learnt about the factor which influence the foreign policy. Remember those 7 points. And after that we learnt about basic aspect of foreign policies. Those were Pancasila Principle, you should remember it was signed between India and China, Nehru and Chow En Lai in the year 1954, and there was a 5 principles. Remember those 5 principles. Next, we started learning about non-aligned movement. In the non-aligned movement, you have to remember the world was divided into 2 blocks, USA and USSR. And India adopted its own policy, that is non-aligned policy. Then you have to explain about Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Then after that we learned about imperialism, where India suffered in the hands of British. So it is against imperialism, it advocated anti-imperialism policy. And the next one is anti-apartheid policy, where we show our support to South Africans. And after that, the next one is disarmament, where we are trying to put an end to arms. That is, not total disarmament cannot be maintained because we require arms for protecting ourselves. And the last one is regarding Article 51. So these are the points what you have to remember in this lesson. Next, I will start with the assignment. In assignment, you have 3 questions. First one is, why is India's foreign policy hailed as Nehru foreign policy? Remember those 3 points where Nehru is giving a speech in the radio about that explanation. Next one, relation with America, Russia and China. And last one, he was the first Prime Minister of India as well as External Affairs Minister. You have to write these 3 points in the first question. Why is Indian foreign policy hailed as Nehru foreign policy? Next, second question. Why does India advocate disarmament as a need of world discuss? So here you have to remember all the points mentioned in the disarmament has to be written. That is from what is disarmament, from there till India advocates disarmament. Till there you have to write it, and it requires it needs the arms for protecting itself. Till there you will write it in this question. And the next one is, what are the Pancasila Principle? Here you will write from the introduction to the 5 principle. That is, when Pancasila Principle was signed, between whom it was signed, and the last, mention those 5 principles. So these are the 3 assignments which are given. Is that clear, children? And this is the end of this lesson. Next session I'll be taking new lesson. Is that clear, children? Thank you. Listen to the video carefully. Is that clear? Thank you.